Hi, it's GTE Courses and welcome to the fourth lesson of the .NET Developer series, in which we will cover the most relevant topics to become a .NET developer. So hit subscribe button and bell to see new videos on our channel. Okay, let's go. In this lesson, we will start learning about the internal elements of the C# class, and we will begin with the constructor. So, in the last lesson, we learned that class is the blueprint of some abstraction model that we want to have in our application. But we usually want to create some more specific instance of that class. So, after defining a class, we can create instances of this class. Constructors are for doing this. In fact, constructors represent special methods which are named the same as the class, which are called when a new instance of the class is created to initialize it. In general, syntax of calling a constructor looks like this. So we use new keyword, next constructor name, and pass parameters in the parentheses. The default constructor. If no constructor is defined in a class, an empty default constructor that takes no parameters is automatically created for that class. The compiler will create it for us when it reads our class. For example, if I wrote a class like this without a constructor, the compiler will see it as following with the default one. Therefore, we can use it to create a class object even if we did not personally create a constructor in the class. As a result, after the execution of this expression, some memory will be allocated where the data of an instance of this class will be stored. And the variable in which we wrote the class instance will hold a reference to it. And through this variable, we can use the instance and refer to its functionality. Creation of constructors. Previously, we have talked about the default constructor to create the object. However, we can define our own constructors. At the code level, a constructor represents a method named exactly as a class, and it can take parameters but does not need to define a return type. For example, let's define a simplex constructor in the car class. Don't be surprised by the console write-line expression. Console is a static class, as we learned in the last lesson. We don't need to create an object of this class. We refer to it simply by name. You may ask, where did it come from? Because we did not create it. Long story short, it's built in into C# language, so we can simply use it. It gives access to console operations. WriteLine is simply a static method of the console class. It just prints to console what we pass to it. We have now passed the brand field of the car instance to it. And when we say that we pass something, it means that we write it in the parentheses as you see in the example. If you have more questions on static classes, please go and see lesson 3 video where we cover that with more details. In this case, the expression car with the following parentheses just represent the call of the certain constructor in the class, and therefore, when it's executed, the value BMW will be written into the brands field, belonging to the class instance. Now let's define three constructors of the class, each with different number of parameters and logic inside these constructors. And we can call one of these constructors to create an instance of the class. Here we create three different instances of the car class using different constructors. The first constructor will initialize the instance and assign default values to the fields. The second constructor expects us to pass the brand to it, and it has the car brand parameter that will hold our value. In the third constructor, we expect the car brand and model to be passed to us in the car brand and car model parameters, and we assign them to the brand and model object fields. Okay, it's time to mention one more interesting thing that we can use inside class. It's this keyword. This keyword is a reference to the current instance of the class. Let's see in what situations we can need it. For example, The parameters in the constructor are named the same as the class fields. And to distinguish parameters and class fields, we could add this keyword. The first part, this .brand, means that the brand is a field of the current class, not the name of the brand parameter. You can also access any field or method using this keyword. Okay, let's go through more interesting combinations and scenarios of how we could use class constructors. Constructor call chain. Previously, we have defined three constructors, and all three constructors perform the same actions. They set the values of the brand and the model fields. But there could be more of these repetitive actions. And we can remove the redundancy of code in constructors by simply refer from one constructor to another through this keyword, passing the required values for the parameters. Using the special syntax, a colon and the keyword this, which refer to the created object itself, the first constructor calls the second, and the second calls the third. By number and the type of parameters, the compiler knows which constructor is called. For example, in the second constructor, there is a call to the first constructor, passed two values. Moreover, the first constructor will be executed the first in the order, and only then the code of the second constructor, as you could see in this sequential diagram. Okay, let's move to another interesting thing, object initializers. Initializers can be used to initialize class instances. Their syntax is represented in the transfer in curly brackets of values to the available fields and properties of the object like this. Using the object initializer, you could assign values to all available fields and properties on the object at the time of creation. The initializer is executed after the constructor, so if the values of the same fields and properties are both set in the constructor and the initializer, then the values set in the constructor are replaced by the values from the initializer. Okay, this is all for this lesson. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell not to miss the following videos in the series. Feel free to leave a comment and like this video. And also I encourage you to help brave people in Ukraine to defend themselves in this horrible war. Please use the QR code in the link in the description to visit charitable foundations that help Ukraine. Thanks! See you in the next videos.